A young Steve Jobs had just dropped out of college. He felt lost, unsure of his future. But instead of panicking, he went with the flow. He began to attend a calligraphy class, solely out of interest. Little did he know this class would later influence the typography of Apple computers, giving them their distinctive aesthetic and contributing to their global success. Drawing from the Eastern Hemisphere, consider the life of Mahatma Gandhi. He wasn't always the revered figure we know him to be today. There was a time when he was a struggling lawyer in South Africa, grappling with racism and injustice. But instead of resisting his circumstances, he chose to flow with them. He used his experiences to fuel his fight for equality and independence, eventually leading India to freedom. These stories, as diverse as they may seem, share a common thread: the power of going with the flow. They show us that life doesn't always follow a straight path. There are twists and turns, bumps and hurdles, but if we learn to accept these as part of our journey, if we stop fighting against the current and instead learn to flow with it, we can find success and fulfillment in the most unexpected places. Einstein, Jobs, Gandhi, they didn't set out to become world changers. They were simply individuals who embraced their circumstances, who went with the flow. They saw opportunity where others saw obstacles. They found inspiration in the mundane. They allowed life to take them where it willed, and in doing so, they left an indelible mark on the world. So the next time you find yourself at a crossroads, uncertain of which path to take, remember these stories. Remember that sometimes the best thing you can do is let go. Surrender to the flow of life. Embrace the unexpected, the unknown. You never know where the current might take you. These stories demonstrate the power of embracing the unexpected and going with the flow. But don't just take our word for it. There's a science behind going with the flow. Enter the world of psychology, where flow isn't just a term for a river's movement. It was psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi who first proposed the concept of flow in the psychological context. He describes it as a mental state in which a person performing an activity is fully immersed in a feeling of energized focus, full involvement, and enjoyment. Picture an artist lost in their work or a scientist engrossed in a breakthrough experiment. That's flow in action. But what makes flow so fascinating is its intricate relationship with happiness and productivity. According to Csikszentmihalyi's research, when we're in a state of flow, we're not just performing at our best, we're also experiencing a deep sense of satisfaction. This is because flow involves a balance between the challenge at hand and our own skills. When we're in flow, we're stretching our abilities, but not to the point of stress or anxiety. Instead, we're in a sweet spot, where we're fully absorbed, our actions and awareness merging seamlessly. Another intriguing aspect of flow is its relationship with time. Ever noticed how time seems to fly when you're deeply engrossed in a task? That's flow at work. It's a state where our sense of time gets distorted as we get lost in the task at hand. But flow isn't just about individual experiences, it has broader implications too. Organizations and societies that encourage flow-like conditions tend to have more productive, innovative, and satisfied individuals. It's no surprise then that many modern workplaces are striving to create environments that foster flow. So what's the takeaway here? Well, by understanding and harnessing the power of flow, we can enhance not only our personal well-being and productivity, but also contribute to a happier, more innovative society. By going with the flow, we can tap into a state of optimal experience. So how can you practice going with the flow in your own life? Let's dive into some practical tips to help you navigate the current of life with grace and ease. First and foremost, practice mindfulness. Being mindful is all about being fully present in the moment, not lost in thoughts of the past or worries about the future. It's about observing your thoughts and emotions without judgment and simply allowing them to be. This can be done through meditation, yoga, or even just taking a few moments out of your day to breathe deeply and focus on the present moment. It's like being an observer on the riverbank, watching the water flow by without trying to control its course. Next, let go of control. This can be a tough one, especially for those of us who like to have our hands on the steering wheel at all times. But the truth is, we can't control everything in life. Trying to do so only leads to stress and frustration. Instead, try to accept that life is unpredictable and full of surprises. Rather than resisting the current, allow it to carry you along. This doesn't mean giving up or not caring about the outcome, but rather trusting that, whatever happens, you have the ability to handle it. And finally, embrace change. Change is a natural part of life, like the changing course of a river. Instead of fearing change, see it as an opportunity for growth and new experiences. Whether it's a change in your personal life or a shift in your career, view it as a chance to learn and adapt. Remember, the river doesn't fear a change in its path. It simply flows around obstacles and finds a new way forward. Remember, life is a journey, so why not make it a more enjoyable ride by choosing to go with the flow? Ever wondered how life would look if you stopped swimming against the tide and simply went with the flow? Picture this. You're in a river, constantly fighting the current, pushing, straining, exhausting yourself. But what if there's another way? Imagine instead you surrender to the river's flow, allowing it to guide you. This is the philosophy of going with the flow. It's about embracing the currents of life rather than battling them. And it's not about being passive or disengaged, but rather about a harmonious alignment with the natural rhythms that surround us. Imagine the serenity, the peace of mind that could come from this approach. Life may not only be easier, but also richer, filled with more joy, more discovery. It's an enticing prospect, isn't it? So, are you ready to dive in? Join us as we delve into the art of going with the flow. Imagine a river rushing, full of energy, carving its path through the landscape. Now, this river is not just a body of water. It's a symbol, a metaphor that encapsulates the concept of going with the flow. As we observe the river, we see that it doesn't resist the landscape. It doesn't fight against the boulders or the mountains that stand in its path. Instead, it moves around them. It adapts. It finds its way without losing its essence. Consider the boulders in the river. They're like the challenges we encounter in our lives. The river doesn't stop when it meets a boulder. It doesn't futilely bash against it in frustration. Instead, it gracefully maneuvers around it, continuing its journey undeterred. The river's reaction to the boulder is not one of struggle, but one of acceptance. It acknowledges the boulder, accepts its presence, and then adapts its course accordingly. The river is not passive, though. It's active, full of energy, and yet there's a certain grace in its movement. It doesn't waste its energy trying to change the unchangeable. Instead, it channels it into moving forward, into making progress. There's a lesson here for us. Like the river, we can face our challenges not with resistance, but with acceptance and adaptability. We can preserve our energy not for futile fights, but for moving forward, for making progress. And then there's the power of the river. We've all seen the grand canyons and valleys carved by rivers over centuries. This is the power of persistence, the power of consistent effort. The river doesn't achieve this overnight. It's the result of a steady, relentless effort over time. It's a testament to the power of going with the flow, of adapting and moving forward despite the obstacles. Like the river, we too can navigate through life with ease and grace, if we learn to go with the flow. As we move into the next year, let's take a leaf out of the river's book. Let's meet our challenges with acceptance, adaptability, and a forward momentum. Let's go with the flow. History is replete with stories of individuals who embodied this philosophy. The philosophy of going with the flow, of surrendering to the current of life, and finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. Let's take a trip back in time to the early 20th century. A young man named Albert Einstein was sitting in his patent office in Switzerland, daydreaming about what it would be like to ride alongside a beam of light. This daydream, this seemingly aimless wandering of the mind, led to the groundbreaking theory of relativity. Einstein didn't resist or fight against his tendency to daydream. Instead, he allowed his mind to flow, to wander freely, and in doing so, reshaped our understanding of the universe. Fast forward